lab number 249. With this lab, we're starting a new lab series that will consist of 3 different labs. And in this lab series, we will focus on migration processes between mobile first platform version 7.1 and version 8.0 beta. So in this particular lab series, we will perform a migration of the application that was built for version 7.1. It will be hybrid wallet project. As you remember, we did it in a previous lab series for 7.1. So basically, right now we'll start with that source code of existing hybrid wallet for version 7.1, and we'll see how to move it to 8.0. So let's start with opening the web browser and navigating to a GitHub page, to the repository of hybrid wallet project for 7.1. So you can get that link below this lab video in the description for this particular lab. So what we need to do here is just copy this URL. Then we can open a terminal window, navigate inside dev workspaces, and let's create a new folder called hybrid wallet and get inside it. So now let's initialize a new repository using git init command, and then add a remote one using git remote add origin and then the URL that we just copied. And now we can actually pull the code from code repository using command git pull origin and then the version. I mean the branch name, of course. So in our case it will be lab 248, the last one. So now we can open a text editor. Let's type command atom and dot to open it's within the current folder. So we'll see our hybrid wallet called Cordova and hybrid wallet server projects. So actually server projects for us won't be needed right now because the structure is nowadays changed in 8.0, and well, we will create a separate adapter. It won't be a part of the server project, it will be just a separate project. And basically, we will mainly modify our hybrid wallet Cordova application. But before starting going into code and into the changes that we need to perform in order to support 8.0 version, we will first need to start the server. So for that, let's go back to terminal and navigate to a new tab, and then to the place where we installed our dev kit. So as you remember, the place is opt IBM and then MFP, and basically inside we have script that can be launched with run sh. This will launch our server. If I will launch this script right here in the terminal, it will be still running. I mean, the command won't finish. If I finish this command, I will close the server. So I will launch it in a hub. So let's have something like this. So now the server should be launched, and we can also check the logs by tailing the nohub out file. If we will type tail -f, we will be seeing all the logs and all the updates from the bottom. So as you can see, server is starting, and it will be started in a few moments. Yeah, actual applications already started. So now we can navigate to it. By default, you can navigate to localhost 9080, then /mfp console. This is the URL of mobile first operations console in the new version. So the username and the password by default is admin, and after login you will get into the dashboard. So this is how our new operations console looking like. Very pretty. So right from here we can actually create applications, adapters, and so on. We can create it from scratch. We can be basing on some examples that are already here. So as you can see, the first step is usually to install a command line interface, but we already did it in the preparations lab. So the creation of adapter can be done in several ways. So we can do it by downloading the sample projects you can find on a separate page, and we will be doing that for security, for user authentication. Then the second option is to use command line interface and then type mfp adapter create, and the third one is directly to use Maven, because anyway the command line interface, when we will type as you can see here, mfp adapter create, we'll use the Maven project type underneath and execute this Maven command, so it's just a wrapper, some kind of. So actually, let's go with command line interface option. So we can open one more tab and basically navigate to our project. It's located inside dev workspaces, as you remember, and then hybrid wallet. And here we can type mfp adapter create. So let's have a name, something like mock adapter. This will be used for actually mocks or stubs for a backend. We won't be calling the real backend, we will be calling the data inside this adapter. So mock adapter will be the name, the type will be HTTP, so by default it will be JavaScript based adapter. Group ID is the Maven project group ID, so let's use something like com hybrids wallet. So as you can see, now we have created an adapter called mock adapter, and we should be able to see it also in our text editor. So the project structure is a bit different from how it was in the previous, but not seriously different. So if you remember in the 7.1, for example, this wallet adapter had two files, the XML file where we had a definition of the adapter, which domain it goes to, protocol, procedures declared, and so on. And also the JS file, the implementation file, where all the code seated. So now, because this is the Maven project, we have the main file that actually explains how to build this adapter with all the dependencies. And then we have src folder inside which actually we still have the XML that is looking pretty much the same, just the small differences. And we also have a JavaScript file where we have the adapter code itself. So now let's use the code snippets to replace the code of this adapter implementation file. So it's called snippet1, and you can find it under lab video in description, or also by following the URL to Dropbox. So you can see that we have two snippets for this lab. 249 we will use now snippet 1. And actually what we need to do is to copy all the content of that snippet and replace all the content in this file. And save this file just like that. So what we had here is actually several procedures, starting with get limit, continue with set limit, get cards, get messages, get card transactions, and basically that's it. So the idea in the previous lab series was that we were using separate based service called get sandbox, and that sandbox had a mocks of our services that we were calling through our adapter. So you can check it right here in old XML file. You saw that we were going to get sandbox, and actually in adapter implementation we were calling the different passes there. In order right now not to push you to go and one more time create those mocks, or for new users who just first time doing this lab series without having previous mocks, not to push on learning this new service, what we are doing, we are actually creating a fake response right in the adapter without calling any kind of backend. So once somebody will call the get limit procedure, they will get in response this fake response that is basically hard coded inside this procedure. So this is how it looks like. So we also need a second snippet to declare a procedures. So let's open the second snippet and basically copy procedure declarations from there and replace two procedures that we declared by default during adapter creation process. So what I want to point out here is that you may notice that there is this thing called secured false. So this is actually analog to security test WL unprotected that we had in a previous version of the platform. And this means that right now there will be no security. We will add security to those procedures in a second lab of this lab series, lab number 250. But in this one, we will just test that everything works, that we can actually call those procedures and so on. So basically what we need to do now is to save this file, go to command line interface, navigate inside our adapter folder. So as you remember, we called it mock adapter, and type mfp adapter build. This is the first command to build the adapter itself. So what it will do actually, it will create one more folder here called target, inside which we will have kind of adapter binary, and that binary will be used actually to deploy our adapter to mobile first platform server. So mock adapter is actually the binary that will be deployed. We can deploy it automatically again using mfp adapter deploy command. So now when adapter was deployed, we can refresh actually our operations console, and you can see that we have here this mock adapter. And what is good is that with version 8.0 we can right away reconfigure it. So for example, change the domain, protocol, port, and so on. But we're also able to see what are the resources, meaning what are the endpoints declared that we can call, what are the methods available for us. Even more cooler thing is that we can use Swagger, and basically we can preview how those things will be working on. So this is like a reference to our REST API. So for example, we can get all cards by calling get cards, and because we have no security by statement secured false, we can try it out right here and get this response and see how it's working. It's really cool. One more thing that you may notice is that the URL was changed. We have here API in between of the name of our runtime and then adapters, mock adapter. But what is cool about that is, never mind that the URL itself was changed, we don't need to change the way how we were typing WL resource requests from the client side of our app, because they are still the same. They still have this adapter, then adapter name, and then procedure name. So that code will remain the same. So actually, next thing that we will do, we will focus on the client side of our application, and let's see what was changed there and what we need to do. So first of all, let's navigate to Hybrid Wallet Cordova and inspect our config XML files. So as you remember, on Linux, sometimes you had two config files with uppercase and with the lowercase. Later on, this issue was fixed in the product, so we can right away remove the config with uppercase And lowercase config needs to be adopted a bit, not a lot, but a bit. So actually we can still have the same name, description, splash screens, but what we need to remove is these preferences regarding the native version login display. We don't need them anymore. We also need to remove from our config XML the same preferences because we have here two different platforms. We also need to remove all the preferences related to mobile first platform server. So these 4 lines can be completely removed. Just like that. And afterwards you can just save this config XML file. Next thing is that we can remove command line interface config JSON file from here. We don't need it anymore. And the mobile first folder, in which by default we had only the binary. So that can be removed also. And we also can remove this application descriptor file. That's it. So now let's go inside the code. We'll start with index.js file. So in that file, you remember in the past we had the common init call that was, well, the function was called after our framework initialization. And we were using WL client connect to perform a server connection. So it was deprecated and now it's totally removed from API. We don't need that. We will be doing things like resource request. The connect will happen automatically. So what we need to do is actually to remove all the things inside and dispatch the event directly. So that event was needed to make sure that we are not using work-light related APIs before the framework initialization. So that's why in the controller nearby we were waiting for this event to be dispatched. Let's just rename it to something like MFP init event. That's it. And then we also need to change the controller where we declared the listener to this new name, MFP init event. So as you remember in the past, that application was pretty simple. So we had the tabs navigation system, tabs-based system, where we had a cards tab. When we were going to that cards, we were calling the service that provides us a list of cards. When we were switching between the cards using the carousel module and swipe, we were actually calling the additional service that were providing us the list of transactions for each card. Then we had a second tab, messages. Those messages were just again backend service that we were calling and placing those messages in a JSON store for local storage. And there were also a settings tab with the limits page, and that limits page was responsible for showing us the current card limit. And we also had the ability to change that limit. So those two were also services. And all those services were declared in services.js, and we were calling them using WL resource request. So as I was saying previously, API is still the same. The only thing that we need to change here is the name of the adapter, because wallet adapter doesn't exist, and we have mock adapter, as you remember. So we will do it with find and replace. Just like that. And let's save this services.js. For now, that's all. We don't need to bother with other controller things like security or push and so on. We will do it later on. Regarding the JSON store, the API still remains the same. So no changes there. So for now, the next step that we will need to do is to go back to our terminal and focus on application registration. So what we need to do here is actually to let server know that this app is actually registered on the server, and this app the client of this app, I mean the mobile device with the app installed, can access the server where we have this application definition and through which we can access adapters. So the way how it was done in the past, as you remember, we were using the command line interface and the commands like mfp Cordova push to actually perform build and deploy commands and deploy this application on the server. So nowadays, because this is not anymore MFP project, this is the basically Cordova project with mobile first platform plugin that we will install later on. And we will actually use the command line interface from Cordova to perform emulation, to perform run, to perform things like manipulations with the platforms and plugins. So nowadays we will need to manually execute a command called mfp dev app register to register it on mobile first platform server. So the trick about it is that before we will do that, we need to remove the old things that were in this app together with the previous release on the platform. And we will start with the plugins. So let me navigate to Hybrid Wallet Cordova project, and I will make the screen a bit bigger. I'm on the terminal window, of course. So we will need to remove the old plugins and we will need to remove the platform and add it again. The reason for that is simple. So if you type Cordova platform list, you will see that we have now installed Android platform with pretty old versions 3.6.4, because in the past we had a custom build for this, and nowadays, because it's the pure Cordova project, we can have much more newer version. So let's remove the platform first. Cordova platform remove and then Android. And then let's also have a list of plugins with Cordova plugins list. You can see that there are three main ones: Cordova plugin MFP, MFP JSON store, and MFP push. And all of others are just their dependencies. So let's also remove them because there are old ones with Cordova plugin remove and then the name of the plugin. Let's start with Cordova plugin MFP. Then we need to remove MFP JSON store, and finally also push. And it should automatically, during those removals, remove all the dependency plugins. So let's check by running Cordova plugins list. Yeah, you can see that there are no plugins anymore. So next step for us here is to add platform. So let's run Cordova platform add Android. So we added the platform, and as you can see, the version is 5.1.1, much newer than we had. And we also will need to add mobile first platform plugins. So for that, we need to install them somehow. So there are two options: to add them from repository or to add them actually from the package that you can download right from the console. Let's try the console way. So first of all, we need to navigate to dashboard page and then click on Get Starter Code. And then basically what we need to do is to navigate inside the tools and get the SDK for Cordova. So just click on it and it will start downloading. So once it is downloaded, we can unpack it. It can be done from terminal, it can be done from UI, so let's do it with terminal. New tab, let's navigate to home folder and then to downloads, and just unzip using unzip command this MFP Cordova zip. So that's it. We actually have now two folders, one called plugins, second one called templates, and from the plugins folder we can actually install those plugins. So here we have 4 plugins: Cordova plugin MFP, Cordova plugin MFP FIPS. To be FIPS compliant, this is the US standard for security. This is related to JSON store actually, if you want to be compliant with FIPS, and JSON store itself, and MFP push. So we will install 3. So main one, Cordova plugin MFP, then JSON store and the push. And we can do that by just typing Cordova plugin add and then the location of the plugin. So in our case, it will be our home folder, then downloads, then plugins, and then those folders Cordova plugin MFP. So let's start with it. You can see that we added some dependency plugins to it. The next one is MFP JSON store. And the last one is MFP push, because we also want to set up push notification. That's it. So now when we have our plugins added, we can actually register the app. So to register an app itself, we just need to type mfp.help register. This is how it happens. It actually connects to a server with runtime. This is the local server in our case, and updates the config XML file. And before we will be able to push our application to server, we need firstly to pull application settings from server. So we can do it by running mfp.dev-app pull command. And the next one is app push to actually push our application. So now we can launch this application in emulator using pure Cordova commands, or we can actually use a preview and embedded command called mfp.dev-app preview from command line interface, and basically it will launch live reload server that will allow us to actually watch the changes that we are doing in the files and automatically apply them in the app itself. So let's launch it using mfp.dev-app preview command. The same as in the last version, we actually were able to choose between the simple browser and mobile browser simulator. This newest version is again allowing us to choose. Let's go with the browser. And actually now it should launch our application. Yep, and you can see that we are seeing the cards. From the data that is got from mock adapter, we also see the card transactions. So let's try to swipe the card. Yep, transactions are changing. We also see the messages here. So those are taken again from our mock adapter. And finally, there is a changes tab where we can see the current limits and change the limit also. So we can check this in the proper size. So for example, let's select the iPhone 6 and relaunch our application. So all the issues here are either related to push, like these two, because we don't have push configuration here and push is not supported, and also the API was changed. The things like Cordova SIM, we are not running on real device, so this 404 error is okay for now. And the digest is related to scope apply sync, so we will be able to fix it in the next lab. It's pretty simple. So everything else is working, including the JSON store. This can be checked by clicking the resources tab. And you will be able to see that we have a cookies and we have a local storage here with the JSON store messages inside. The trick is that we don't have any encryption here, so this is like a text that we have there, and we can actually examine it, what's inside with all the search field and all the data. So that's all basically for this lab number 249. We will continue in the next lab with adding security. Thank you.